Tonight we'll be discussing the section relationship between projectiology and other science. So I will handle to Michiko to do the poll, and then we are going to be back, and we will start with the facilitators of today.
Hello, everyone. So if you can access the poll, the address is in the chat there, or you can use this QR code as well. So the first question is, have you had a projection or out-of-body experience in the last month? So there's several options you can choose there: ordinary dreams, lucid dreams, semi-lucid projections, lucid consciential projection, continuous consciential projections, or you might have, but you're not sure what type, or you may have had, but you cannot remember. Okay, that's great. So it looks like people have been having some kind of experiences, 100% semi-lucid projections, which is great, lucid dreams, and some people have had lucid consciential projections. That's great. So we'll go to the next question. Have you used the technique? So the technique of this month was the mental concentration, or you could have used any of the other techniques as well. So just indicate whether you've used a technique or not this month. Good. So it looks like the majority have not been using a technique, or everyone haven't used the technique. So that's really interesting. So what we want to do is we want to kind of see over time, whether these techniques are being used and if that has any kind of relationship to the amount of activities or experiences that we have. Okay, and the last question. Have you read the chapters? So yes, you've been reading the chapters and you're up to date with your reading. Yes, you have, but you're a little bit behind. And no, you have not been reading along. Okay, so looks like about half of us, we have been reading the chapters, the majority of us, and about 50% of us haven't been reading. So it'll be interesting maybe in the discussions later to talk about any of these questions, the experiences you're having, whether you're using the techniques, and if you're not reading the chapters, then we can talk about why that is. Okay, so I'll hand it back to Magali.
Thank you, Michiko. So the facilitators of this month is Ana Paula Lage and Jacqueline Cowan. So Ana Paula is volunteer of Conscientiology since 1991, teacher of Conscientiology since 1994, Penta practitioner since 1995, current volunteer of ISE, graduate in psychology, specialist in positive psychology, master degree student in psychogerontology. Jacqueline Cowan is graduate in urban planning and master of urban design, born in Sydney, Australia, and currently lives in Foz do Iguaçu since 2014. Volunteer of Conscientiology since 2007, Conscientiology teacher since 2009, and Penta practitioner since 2016. Currently co-coordinator of Pre-CI Isaac and a volunteer of Consecutivos, co-author of the English-Portuguese Glossary of Essential Conscientiology Terms. Welcome, Anna and Jacqueline, and now I will hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much,
you.
Magali. It's very nice being here. We're going to be doing the presentation. We'll be sharing between myself and Jacqueline. And we're going to present to you guys an overview of the chapter and with some images for us to reflect. And at the end, we're going to ask you guys to talk about some of aspects we'll be talking here when we break up the rooms. And then we come back and we're going to have a discussion. So while we are in breakout rooms, you're going to discuss, apart from the technique, how you're going with the read of the book, and also some information about the projectiology and the relationship with other science. So this chapter basically is talking about, as I said, projectiology in relation to other science. And this is very interesting. When we were reading this chapter, we were thinking, why Professor Waldo put this chapter in this context. And what we can see, it is projectiology, the study of out-of-body experience, the projection of consciousness. It's so broad. And it's a phenomenon that gives us such an incredible opportunity to understand many factors in our intraphysical life, and that inevitably will go into the science. So throughout here, we're going to be talking about the projection. In this context, within the book Projectiology, Professor Waldo talk about the projections, many different types, different times. But in each chapter, he mentioned the phenomena, he put a different angle. And in here, the angle is more related to how the experience, the out-of-body experience, can provide a broader opportunity of understanding certain aspects of the science that we study, like zoology, understand the animals' projection, the plants, understand our history, maybe with out-of-body experience, but also some phenomena, retrocognition, and so on. So that's what we're going to be presenting throughout this first part of our presentation. So I'll hand it to Jacqueline now.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, we were, this chapter 30, talks about the human lucid projection. And so it actually talks about the phenomena within this context of the relationship between projectiology and the other sciences. So we thought it would be good to maybe start the presentation off with, talking a little bit about the phenomena which is the, the main experience, the human lucid projection, which defines the science of projectiology. So just to give a definition here, so this idea of the human lucid projection, this is a unique experience or perception of the environment in which the center of one's awareness is situated outside the human body. It's interesting because in this chapter, Waldo talks about many different synonyms that are used by different schools of thought, right, across the ages. And he lists 141 different synonyms, which is interesting to show how widespread the knowledge of this phenomena is. So we have, the out-of-body experience, astral projection, extracorporeal travel, journey of the soul, little death, and many others. And some of the interesting points that we observed while reading this chapter is the fact that it's not a religion, it's not a creed, a dogma, or religiosity. So it's treated, we study the phenomena as a science, without a belief. It's through personal experiences, and and then the person can get direct proof of the validity of the phenomena. And another aspect is this idea of universality of the phenomena. Regardless of one's background, it's possible to experience this phenomena. Yeah, even regardless whether you even believe it or not, it's part of our paraphysiology. It's it's part of our nature as consciousnesses. And this aspect of the science, it's not just a science that is external to one. We study it, how could I say, it's something that can help us, help our personal lives. We have the experience, and over time we can improve our current lives. Yeah, without the need to suffer, right? This is the aspect of religion that's we can disregard. We can have those experiences, we can get information and insights, and yeah, without and understand the context of our lives better. And lastly, yeah, it can help us, as Anna was saying, it has these connections with these other sciences. And this particular science can help us to understand better all the other sciences that exist. And we will talk more about that later on. Anna?
Oh, yes. So one of the chapters that, one of the chapters that Professor Waldo brings, chapter 17, it's about interdisciplinarity. So we put here the definition is the common condition referring to or including two or more disciplines or areas of knowledge existing interaction. And it's very interesting because what he brings, in a sense, because of the phenomena, is such an old phenomenon in history of humanity. And now we want to use this phenomena to understand more our intraphysical reality. It's so important though, that we can integrate knowledge. And one of the aspects that he stressed that we need to integrate knowledge. We can't just say projection doesn't have anything to do with other realities, and other realities doesn't have anything to do with projection. And also it demands from us as researchers a view of tautology, the study of everything. So if I'm studying projectiology and conscientiology, we can see the example of the book Projectiology has 1,907 bibliographic entries from different fields in science. And the same is not only in science, but the school of knowledge, and also 700 experiment. So it's very important we create the interdisciplinarity that can help us to go a little bit further in the knowledge and the explanation of this relation of this science with another science. Also, intercooperation. One of the aspects he talks about is how important it is science nowadays. We intercooperate with each other. We see a science in conventional science when we see when scientists can work together, the knowledge they produce, it's broader than if they are just in their culture, within their laboratory. And nowadays we see more and more these studies, they are longitudinal, means they go through research the person's life throughout their lives, but also they are intercultural, and which is quite important, and take us to the next point of the importance of polyglottism and multiculturalism. One thing it is a scientist or production of knowledge that is restricted to English. We see a big prevalence, unfortunately or fortunately, that science produced in English language. So it's a mono language science in a sense. So we see that when we produce in some language, but we have this intersection with other languages. Someone in France has a connection and understand what's happened with America research, and then the result is broadened. An example of that, I think we can give now, Jacqueline, an example of a research that has been developed, I think in USA, Jacqueline, or Brazil. They study
the reincarnation.
The reincarnation, yes, yes.
Yes.
So it is a study that they did the intersection between different countries to study the reincarnation among kids, the memory that they bring about the phenomena they had. And but they researched different countries, I think 10 different countries.
Yeah, the USA and Brazil,
Yes.
the two countries, yeah.
Yes, they work together.
But they studied about the research over many different countries, you're correct.
Yes,
yes,
yes.
Yes,
and
yes.
They brought the view over many different countries. And if you guys want afterwards, we can give, yes, there is a reference of this study. I think we put in our slide, Kim. It's very interesting and very surprising, the results. But why I'm citing them here? It's because of that. When we bring more the many different languages and the multiculturalism, we increase and we improve, not improve, but we broaden a view of certain information. And especially for us, out of our experience, that we know it's a universal phenomena, when it comes to study what this universal phenomena can give us the opportunity to study to, it helps us to understand that. So the importance of having the view of the different cultures, the impact of that in how people will understand the phenomena. One surprising thing I saw was Mexico. They have a bigger percentage of people that accept life after life or reincarnation, whereas in Brazil, that I thought would be bigger, it's lower. So things like help us to break our own paradigm or preconception of things. And one of the things that interdisciplinarity help us is to understand here, in terms of projectiology, that projectiology is not dogmatic. It's based in faith. It is not dogmatic. It's based in faith on the creation of heretics. So it's not that we are based in faith. I've read last week Synchronicity, any faith in the world will change the fact. So if we can have faith, but you do not change the fact. And it's important that Professor Waldo put this very clear. No, we are not here creating any dogmas about this. We not based on faith, and we are not creating any heretics. And it's how important it is that we can dissipate. We discuss about these ideas and broaden this from a neophilic personal experience. It was what Jacqueline was saying before, how important it is that one of the difference that projectiology, conscientiology demand from us, it is that when we study, the more we study, the more that study impacting ourselves, in how we see the world, how we position ourselves towards the study of this tautology. In neophilic personal experience. And also an ability that we can practice of admiration, disagreement, binomial. We sometimes, due to a more closer view of things, from a biased view or preconception, we might tend to think that, this is what they are studying, it's not useful, or it's not, they are saying about only the body, they are not seeing the totality of multidimensionality. But if we go a little bit deeper and understand what is said about, even if it's the body, how this impact, if we have a more open view, we can look at the information science bring, even though they are limited, and how can we look from a different perspective, which will be the perspective with the consciential paradigm. That's how important it is we exercise this admiration and disagreement. We go and admire what they do up to a certain point, but we disagree in some of the points that they bring. So for us to think about this, have you guys saw this picture before? If you can put there in the chat. So what does interdisciplinarity mean to you? Okay, this, you see that the source, it's a poem, Indonesian poem, where they put a blind man to look and to say, to bring the information, what is the elephant, right? And so they bring the elephant and they put there, And then they asked the people in general, those monks, they were blind, to say what it is the elephant. And it's very interesting because each of them get a part of the elephant, and they think that part, it is the whole elephant. And you see that. One get the trompe and they say, elephant is snake. And then the other one gets the corn and they say spear. The other one gets the ear and it's a fan. And so what is this picture it's bringing? Yes, so you see, when we see interdisciplinarity, we can combine the view and the knowledge, and then we produce the view of a whole. So when we are open to see that it's not necessarily the part I'm seeing, is the whole, we start to create interdisciplinarity. We start to create dialogue between the science. We start to create more openness to understand where we have the limitations of a science and where we can provide or we can increase and expand the limits of that knowledge, okay? And one of the things about this, which is quite important we say as well, sometimes this happens in our day-to-day life, due to our biased cognitive processing. So we have a tendency to think that the whole fact that the interpretation I have, it's so subjective, but we think that that is the explanation for everything. So, and this helps us to understand that when Socrates says, the more I say, I see, the more I know, the more I see that I do not know. Because the more we know, the more we see where are the gaps in the knowledge we have and how important we start to broaden and start that communication between the knowledges. Jacqueline, do you want to add something?
Well, no, continuing on with the, philosophers, ideas, we'll come to this allegory of the cave with the image, which is from Plato. And basically the idea is that these men, it is a situation where these men are prisoners, they're in a cave, they're unable to move, and people are, with puppets, they are projecting with the puppets on, and with the men only see the shadows of the puppets on the wall. And they, over time, they think that those images, those shadows is what is real. And so it's interesting, for example, if one of the men, they leave the cave and they go outside and then they see, actually this is the reality, 3D objects, not the shadows, the two-dimensional shadows. That's not what's real. It's actually the objects. The objects is what was creating those shadows on the wall. And if that person goes back and tries to explain to these men in the story, and they don't believe him because they personally haven't had that experience. And so I guess you could use that as an analogy, as metaphor for, understanding multidimensional reality. Sometimes we see things in a certain way, and perhaps we're unable to see things from a different perspective, maybe because of a lack of experience. Maybe there's some positive within us as well. But the more that we understand the different areas, different sciences, this interplay as well between projectiology, then we're able to see more of the totalology, what Anna was saying before, the reality of what we're studying. Okay, so I don't know if Anna, you wanted to say anything more about that, but I'll go to the next image, but just let me know. Yeah. And then we have the next two images. The one image is of the iceberg, so classic image. I guess the idea is that sometimes we only see a fraction of the whole, because we're seeing things from that one area, one perspective, or it could be intraphysicality, right? And then the rest of the iceberg is what we're not seeing. And then the multidimensional reality. And then finally, we have this image of a girl sitting with her kind of a monovision, and she's seeing things from, you know, in that one perspective, based, I guess, maybe on her beliefs, her ideas, her upbringing, her experiences. And if she was just to perhaps look at in a different angle, then she may be able to see things from a different perspective. So, those images. If anyone wants to make any comments also about those images, feel free.
Okay, so we've used the images because it's quite, images, we have many different ways of learning something. No, our cognitive processing is quite various in many different ways. That's why we put some of the images. But let's present here the image here. This one, it's an organization that studies about knowledge and research, information, so on, process of information. So the first one here, what do you see? You see information. Then we see knowledge. What is happening between having information and then having a knowledge? If we bring to understand what we talk in the context of this chapter, it is information, it's isolated information. We have data, we have numbers, but they are isolated. When we come to produce knowledge, we interconnect that. And we could see here that the principle of disbelief, do not have your own experience, do not believe what we are saying, have your own experience, maybe it's the essence of the production of knowledge. We only produce our knowledge when we start to think, we have an experience, we reflect, and we think about that in a critical sense, and we actually interconnected those knowledge. And then in the other side here, if you see the other, we have here the data, no, which is isolated, many data, many numbers that maybe they are just numbers, random, not so random because it might be a result of many research and so on, but still we have information, then we have knowledge again, the interconnection. And can you see here when they put the insight, the insight and then the wisdom. So the insight, it is when you get that knowledge, but you produce something else. You see the yellow ones, you are starting to produce because the insight, it's a ha-ha moment. It is when we go from the understanding of that general knowledge, we pass through ourselves, and I'm talking from the conscientiological point of view, take into account here the principle of disbelief. So we practice, we experience, we have in ourselves the understanding of that, and then we can explain that situation from our experience, and then we can bring to other people understand that, which is wisdom. So in this sense, in synthesis, what we wanted to stress here, it is how important to produce knowledge, we create breeds. Breeds not only in our cerebral, in our brain, a cerebral breeds, but in our brain, where we need to connect in order to have the plasticity or the create the information, now and fix that, we need to have interconnection. And it's the same when we deal with the study, as we are talking about here in the chapter, the interdisciplinarity and the interconnection between the science. We all gain when we interconnect, we intercommunicate, and we have that exchange of information. And the last one here is the impact, no? So it's broadened. When we are just looking from one perspective, like Jacqueline showed before, the iceberg and the caveman and the girl sitting and just seeing one perspective, we limit that knowledge. And when we start to broaden and interconnect and do associations of information, of ideas, we broaden the understanding of that. And we're going to see a little bit further how this will impact as well by our own experiences and maybe prior experience of knowledge that we had. And we come here, we are studying some subject that we probably have studied before, But in this moment, we are going from a different perspective. I'm studying this. I'm going from the limit or the point that I stop it, and I'm bringing and add a little bit more to that knowledge. But we're going to be talking a little bit down the track.
So, so what are the main differences between projectiology and other sciences? We have here a table, I think, of different types. I think, Anna, you were going to do the first half, right? And then it's going to do the next half.
Okay, so let's talk about those differences, because due to the fact that we work from different paradigms, the essence of the paradigm, inevitably, this will create a difference in the approach and the angle that each of the sciences look, and also what the instruments that we use to study that. So the first one here, projectiology, works from the consciential paradigm, whereas our conventional science works under the conventional paradigm, which is the more limited one, taking into account our interphysical life. Consciential paradigm will take that we have multidimensionality, that we need to take into account, bioenergies and so on, multi-existentiality, many different lives, no? And also we need to take into account the bioenergy that is there and the the holosoma. Now we have an approach that we do not only look only the physical body, but we're going to look all the bodies that impact that experience. And also the multidimensionality and intraphysicality. It's not because projectiology will look from a multidimensional point of view that will limit our understanding to multidimensionality only. So we look at everything that happened in our day-to-day life and how this impacts our multidimensional life. Whereas the conventional science, the focus is intraphysically. Everything that has to do with the intraphysical dimension. Nowadays, some areas of physics, some in the quantum physics, they are trying to bring more information about, attempt to get multidimensionality. But what we see is still energy. It's very different to go out from your body and actually acknowledge that there is another dimension where you can act on. And that's come to another difference with the parapsychism. So when we research, and any researcher will have an approach to research something and use the parapsychism, that view will broaden. And what I'm saying about the parapsychism, all the abilities that can help us to sense, to observe, to access some memories, some information that goes beyond only the information that our human senses has. And still in the science, use a lot of technology. And this is one of the things that Professor Val says in terms of how projectiology can help us to broaden as well and understand the use of certain technologies that's not necessary. For instance, if you go, not necessarily, but you can use that if you go to deep sea. You can't access certain areas of the sea because you need to have some machines that allows you, or vests that allows you to go to the deeper sea. Whereas when we have an out-of-body experience, a projection, we can go and see the deep sea without having those limitations of our human sense.
Okay, great. So another aspect within projectiology, the person is both the researcher and the research object. You cannot have experienced the phenomena, you cannot research the phenomena without actually having the experience yourself. So this is one difference between, projectiology and conventional science. Even though, you can have some personal experiences, it doesn't depend on it. And people generally, they remove themselves from the research as in, true science. And then with projectiology, it's a subjective experience, where in conventional science, it's more, the focus is on the objective experience. And then with projectiology, we have, the focus is on generally what happens is when we have the experience, we go through a process of interconsciential recycling. We want to improve the phenomena. We want to, we develop our cosmoethics. We want a greater connection with the helpers. We understand more about this process of evolution. We need to, it has as a main focus this intraconsciential recycling, inner renewal, whereas conventional science is still detached from the evolution of the consciousness in the same sense as projectiology is. And then with projectiology, finally, it's the phenomenon which you cannot prove to anyone else. It's self-persuasive. It's something when after you have that experience, a lucid experience, you will understand that the phenomena does exist. Whereas, in conventional science, there is this aspect of repeating the phenomena in a controlled setting and, repeating it many times for it to be seen as proof. Okay. So then how can projectiology contribute to the other sciences? We have here this graph we created that kind of sums up this interplay, this interrelationship between projectiology and the other sciences, how projectiology really can, is involved or is, involved in all the other sciences, all the different areas, and how once you, overlay projectiology over that science, it has that possibility of, going even, deepening the research, going even further. And so then we have, all these ideas, and I know we're going to, talk about them together. But,
the idea here was for us to bring here the scheme, the projectiology and the interrelation with other science, that what the chapters bring to us. And we start to think about what are the aspects, taken from the information from the chapter that Professor Waldo mentioned. And so we saw interdisciplinarity, the importance of the experience of the phenomena. And when we experience the phenomena, that will impact our level of ideas, of cognition, of understanding. And then we started to research, but not a research only outside. What's the phenomena? What is this? Why this happened to me? What this sensation is so new and so impact our cognitive system. And inevitably we'll come to research ourselves as well. And that's why we bring the interrelationship. When we started to study ourselves, we go out and we bring to us. We go out and bring to us, which brings the theories. So it's a theory and the practice. And we understand that 1% it's theory. In Consciential, 99% it's practice. And the practice means an active production of knowledge, which we reflect in our cognitions, in our understanding of the world around us, and also to apply in us what we are studying. And this will help us to assess the innate ideas. So that's one thing we were talking on, Jacqueline, that sometimes we want to have the innate ideas, but it doesn't come like, necessarily. No, we see an example of Professor Waldo and also John Schneider, who wrote a big encyclopedia in Parapsychism, Professor Waldo, many encyclopedias in the study of consciousness, how much they need to study, how much we need to study and broaden our knowledge, read about many different things, different knowledges that can convey and help us to understand and to get that understanding of the phenomena or what we are studying in a more bigger way, a broader way. And that's what came as the innate ideas and capture of original ideas, We studied a little bit as well, the caption of original ideas where this is in history in the book we have it as well, Projectiology. And so the scientists, we had one Unfortunately, I think I didn't get the reference, but he got the whole theory. The guy was studying. He couldn't come up with the step-by-step theory that he was proposing, I think in psychology. So one day he woke up and the ideas were all there. So we say that's the capture of original ideas. And basically, and then this will take to universalism, because when we talk about universalism in a whole, it's the conviviality and so on, but within this context of this chapter, universalism implies the ability to get out from our frame of understand of knowledge and mingle and understand the other frame of knowledge. So if I'm facing someone that studies neuroscience, which is fascinating, and I am here, I study physics, and so I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen what that person has to say. And this is universalism, without being biased, without being framing. Naturally, we do that. We frame any knowledge to our own. We kind of filter our understanding. But the more we create that expansion of the information, the more we can create that bridge, that connection with that knowledge. And this is universalism. It's being able to get 2 scientists or 4 or 5 or 6 that speak maybe different languages. They come from different backgrounds, but they produce a knowledge in another way, in a more broader way, Jack?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. So I was thinking of an example we see too often happening, for example, in someone has an issue which is a physiological cause. And, and it affects their emotions, and they go to a psychologist hoping to resolve the issue. And yet the cause isn't psychological in nature. It's actually maybe dietary or something else. And because of this lack of, integration between the different sciences, I think, it can have an effect. It does have an effect on people. So this idea of, imagine, if there is that greater interplay between the sciences and, of course, projectiology as well, where how many new ideas and new understandings can come from that. So it's interesting to think about.
And also, each of us, we have our specialty within the study of conscientiology and projectiology, but we all have some areas, some field of knowledge that we go and we are studying and we are working on that. And when we come with this view, we're going to see that what the difference makes. It is that because we study projectiology and conscientiology, we have that broader view of the phenomena, the parapsychism. When we look at what we study nowadays, we choose to do what we study. So we have a more a bigger view of that situation, no? And so what Jacqueline was saying, it's having that connections. No? Sometimes you're gonna see if you look as a person as a holosomatic person, we can do those interrelations. It's the energy, it's the nutrition, whereas it's not only the physical, but it's not only the energetical, it's a combination of everything. So that flexibility of thinking, and one example of that, too, actually, nowadays, the Oxford University, they provide for the students an opportunity that if they are in one field, they studying, let's see, medicine, they need to do some subjects in different areas from theirs. Where is it? Is psychology or history or anything? They needed to do. Why? Because this will help them to have more association of ideas. And what we talk about in Consciential, that we are generalists, but is specialists, no? And so that's a quite important thing. And what they are doing this. And this chapter, it's all about what Professor Waldo focus is, that we be able to look and to integrate and have that interrelationship and understanding how one impacts another and what's the limitation, or how can we understand that limitation and we bring maybe a knowledge for that gap, you know, and And the final product is the union of the thing that will create and will increase that knowledge.
Yes, and it's continuous, right? It never
It's
ends.
continuous.
So it's a
Never
spiral,
ends.
right? So
yes, yes.
continue, yeah, developing. Okay, so I think we're at the end of this part now. I think we go to the next part, which is the exercise. We, as Anna was saying, we switched the dynamic a little bit for today. And we have this exercise that we would like for everyone to be involved in, is to try and think about the relationships with projectiology and the different sciences, what currently exists, different ideas, connections, association of ideas that you can make between projectiology and these different sciences. Perhaps things that already exist or things that maybe it could be, you know, people are not currently studying, but it's, you know, extrapolate what could be for the future in, yeah, looking at your own personal ideas, movies, books in the academic area, articles, anything. So it's really just feel free to make those connections. Okay.
So when we broke, and then I think we're going to be how many we're going to give to each group, Jacqueline? Do we know?
So there's 9 here, and I guess maybe 3 groups, or how many groups? Is it possible to do that?
Yeah, we can do 4 with 3 people, or 3 groups with 4. 3 groups with 4, maybe.
Yeah, it's all right. Yes, yeah.
Okay. So I'll set that up right now, and
so in the chat I will send this PDF so people can just have an idea. But I guess, yeah, the first group will do the first 3, second group the next 3, the third group the last 3.
Okay. Ready? I can start the rooms now.
Great.
Okay, so about how much time? About 10 minutes?
Yes, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
Okay. All right. See you in 10 minutes, everyone.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize that we're going to have this fly-in activity. It's going to be a 7-day long experiment, you know, 2 online classes and a lot of nights with extra physical meeting. And I also want to inform you that we have monthly debates on IIPC YouTube channel. That's on the 2nd Saturday of the month. So last week we had a debate. I'm going to put here our YouTube channel if you want to stay tuned, okay? And probably next month we'll have another debate, and IIPC is really focusing on, and this is all in English, and we're focusing on developing projectiology. And if I have this time, next month I'll bring you more information about a very interesting course that will take place in November, but the activities will start next month, which is projectiology and extraphysical reurbanization. So next month, I'll bring you more information about some interesting activities in projectiology. Thank you, guys.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline and Patricia. So just to close, I'm recording this session again, just to share that we are going to be using a new technique this month. So we invite you to participate and practice this technique. It's the imaginative escapes technique, and that's on page 437 of the English version of Projectiology. Okay, so I'm hoping that you can put that into your practice, because that's, you know, a big part of projectiology is the practical side, not just the theory. And we can come together next month and share our experiences with that. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Thanks,
you very
everyone.
much. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.